Rangers fans, Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and we are Liberty Blue. We scream about the New York Rangers so that you can save your voice. That's how deeply we care about you, and we appreciate that you have joined us for the ride. This is episode 12. Apologies for no new episode last week. Some real life things got in the way, and we are pre recording this because some other real life things are preventing us from recording the show live, but we wanted to make it up to you and pre-record something for you so that you have it on Monday good to go. We will put the full video up on our YouTube, Liberty Blue Podcast, and the audio version will be available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Search Liberty Blue on your favorite podcast platform, and it should be there. At Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram, I am at Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY Andrew, and Nick Zararis, NICKZARARIS, are our personal handles to follow as well. Nick, what have you cooked up for us today?
Well, the NFL does this every single offseason right before the preseason starts to kind of get people talking about football again, where they do a top 100 list. They go around the league, they do a survey of the players in the league, they do a straw poll basically, and they gather enough data to release a top 100 players list where they'll do some highlights, they'll do some personal testimonials about what it's like to play against this person, that kind of person. And because the NHL does not utilize NHL Network the same way the NFL utilizes NFL Network, we are going to do a better job of what NHL.com does every couple of weeks to just garner interactions on social, where they will do a top 20 centers, a top 20 forwards, a top 20 goalies, etc., just to kind of gather information. There's no explanations or anything. It's just a list, no criteria, no these are the best valued players, these are the best players. It's just these are the players and the positions they play in an order where it's not explained who picks the order, it's not explained what order they're specifically in terms of, whether it's value, whether it's production. So we're going to try our best to do a scaled down version of that with just the top 20 players in the NHL, regardless of position. And yes, regardless of position, this is something Andrew brought up when I pitched this idea for the episode. Well, how do you compare a defenseman to a goalie, a forward to a defenseman, etc.? And that's where the interesting part of this comes into play, and the criteria you're choosing to use to evaluate this comes into play. And I think it's a part of this conversation that gets overlooked sometimes because, yes, there is a clear-cut pecking order in everybody's mind in terms of what position is most valuable, what type of things you want from that position. But what exactly are those things? That will vary from person to person. And Andrew and I have pretty similar lists. There's significant overlap, 15 players in common from our lists, and then 5 each that aren't on each other's lists. So reasonably understanding that, differences of opinion, slightly different values. You're going to see people very differently rated. I have somebody ranked third that Andrew has in the teens. I have somebody ranked seventh that Andrew doesn't have ranked at all. So we're going to get into this. We'll go back and forth where we'll each do our lists in order. We have a nice little slideshow put together. I get to feel like I was in high school again, making slideshows. That was fun. Just a little bit of visuals. I wrote one sentence each for all the guys on my list, and Andrew will explain a little bit. I'll explain a little bit. We can push back and forth, ask each other questions, give this kind of a not quite an open-ended forum feel because there's obviously only 2 of us, but more of a conversational type deal, like 2 guys just sitting down at dinner or whatever to talk about this kind of thing, because it's the middle of August and there's no hockey news. So we had to get creative today.
I mean, okay, Kulikov got traded today, so I guess that's news for future considerations. Yeah, but like when you brought this idea up to me, like you said, I didn't know how to go about listing it, and I spent a lot of time today.
I spent like 2 hours.
Yesterday.
I spent like 2 hours.
Yeah,
putting it together.
We spent a good amount of time kind of just figuring out, okay, like this isn't a list of just who we think are the best players. To me, and I think like our list varies based on our own individual kind of thought process of, okay, who are the 20 best players in the NHL, by extension the world, at what they do. It's position list, which makes it so much harder, because how can you like the argument of oh well, Cale Makar is better than Nathan McKinnon. That argument is very difficult to create because they play different positions. They're tasked to do different things. But what Nate and I have Nate, oh my, I'm losing my mind. If
You're
what
hanging out
Nick
with the Nate dog? You got invited to the parade in Cole Harbor?
what Nick and I have done is create something that we feel is maybe not definitive, but a good indication of if you had to pick your top 20 for throw positions out the window, who are the 20 players that you are taking to make the top of that list? And we tried our best. Now, listen, it's very difficult. Like I said earlier, it was very difficult to be like, oh, well, Kill McCarr is here, but he's like higher than some forward because of that. Like it's very difficult, but we tried our best.
Okay, so what were before we get into the actual lists, we'll do a few minutes on this. What were your criteria for selecting players in the order you tried to do it? Talk me through your thought process for your rankings.
So it was a combination of a few different things. If it's a forward, I kind of looked at how they play a two-way game, because hockey is a two-way game no matter how you look at it. There's I guess such a thing as a two-way player, which is what like if you look up a two-way player in the dictionary, you see a picture of Patrice Bergeron. But uh, hockey is not just about offense. So I picked players at least in the top the very very top echelon of players. If there are forwards that were very good at both ends of the ice, because if you're an offensive phenom but you cannot defend a lawn chair, then you are not an overall top 5 player to me anyway, because we're looking at the whole picture. Because Alex Ovechkin, right, for example, is one of the best offensive players to ever play the sport. And there could be an argument that he is the best pure offensive scorer on the planet, right, in the history of the sport. But my man's can't guard an old lady. He can't defend an old lady. That's just been the way that he's played throughout his entire career, where he can score at will. He's incredible in the offensive zone, but when it comes to defending his own zone, he just can't do it. So I valued players higher that were very good and just a phenom on both ends of the ice. Same thing with defensemen. Your primary objective as a defenseman is to defend your own zone. Can you do that very well? But also, how dynamic are you offensively? This is a two-way game. If you're one of the best stay-at-home defensemen, that's one thing. But if you can shut down line after top line of whoever you're playing, while also scoring 3 points in the power play and putting up all these sick passes and all these breakout, all these things, that's what separates me. That's what separates you from other defensemen and puts you in my top 20. And for goalies, I think I only put 2 on there, and then the two, I think
They're obvious.
the two obvious ones. I mean, they are the best of their sport. They are, if you're in a game 7, which two goalies are you, like, which two, if you had to pick two goalies to trot on the ice, who would you want? And these are obvious answers. I mean, in terms of goalies, there are no surprises, but I really tried to hunker down on the idea that these are the best overall players that can do everything and can do everything well. Not like there's some players that I have low on my list that people would think would be much higher, but these guys can't defend, so I don't have them higher. I tried to make it as overall and as as overarching as I possibly could.
So I thought I was going to, that was my initial starting point, was I was going to try and keep it as two-way as possible, as analytical, as academic as possible. Like if I were to write a research paper on this, that was my initial starting point. But then I started to sit and think about the practical application of that. And this is specifically going to be a conversation we have, because you brought it up when we were texting earlier about where I have the goalies ranked and where you have them ranked. And in the back of my mind, I was just thinking about all of the years the Rangers had Henrik Lundqvist, who was either the best, second best, third best goalie in the league every single year he was on the team, pretty much until the end of his career. it's really hard to win when your best player is a goalie unless they have quality players in front of them, which is why I have the goalies ranked a little bit lower. And I started to think of this in more of an applicable situation, like how would it actually translate? And that's why I have some of the offense first guys a little bit higher ranked, and I have one player ranked very highly that you don't have ranked at all. I thought about this in terms of practical application. I need somebody who is dynamic, who's going to be able to make high end plays, because at the end of the day, I will trade defense for offense because offense is more valuable to me the way I evaluate hockey, because this is the explanation I always give. It's impossible to win a hockey game 0-0. You could have a literal brick wall built between the pipes, but eventually someone's going to have to score a goal. And that's why I'm willing to take some of the guys I have into battle on this list. You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
That's all. This is your idea, so by all means, go ahead.
Okay, so we got to hit this magic button here. Go to here. Okay, numero 20 on my list. This is the one guy that I've been talking up a lot recently that I've really started to take a strong stance on, that this is going to be one of the 10 best players in the entire sport very soon. I'm talking about Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars, a point per game player in his first full season in the NHL last year on a team coached by Rick Bowness who did not allow offense. The Stars did not create offense at all, aside from when Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, and Rupe Hintz were on the ice. Size, elite in transition, very good at creating high danger chances for his line mates, big enough where he's going to be able to win puck battles and create offense for other players. The guys who just missed out, real quick, the next three guys down on my list were Panarin, Bergeron, and Matthew Tkachuk, who were all players that Andrew had mentioned earlier. I love Robertson's game. I think he's only going to get better. I'm a little concerned with where he is, in just the Stars are kind of a mess in terms of roster construction, and they don't have a ton of flexibility to improve the roster. But Robertson's game is very good already, and he's pretty polished for someone who's only 22 years old, which is a really good sign, because if you can hit the ground running at 22, you're going to have a lot of runway to improve. And I think it was 79 points in 74 games as a 22-year-old. That's really impressive. Just flat out, really damn impressive.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw Jason Robertson on your list, because I really like Robertson's game. I really enjoy watching him play, and he not only knows what to do with the puck, he knows how to take the puck away from you. He is a very good two-way player. My only kind of eyebrow that I rose when I saw this was he's still very young. So I,
Yes.
I want to see him do it again
Yes.
before
Fair.
I definitively put him in my top echelon of players. Because for all, like, he had an amazing season. He was dominant for a large part of the season for the Dallas Stars, a team that couldn't score to save their lives. But I want to see him do it again. I want to see him continue the upward trajectory that his career is currently on. And if he does that, I'm more than willing to take somebody out potentially to put him in my top 20. But right now, for me, it's a little bit too early.
Definitely agree with you. I mean, I use that in other criteria for evaluation, where that's why, spoiler, I have Vasilevsky ahead of Igor. Vasilevsky's done it a lot longer, even though Igor just had one of the best goalie seasons ever. For this situation, I wanted to go a little bit off the beaten path because I'm a very big fan of Robertson's game, and he doesn't get his flowers enough as somebody on a small market team in terms of NHL standards. So next up, is it going to load fast? Thank you. Okay, Roman Yossi, 96 points as a defenseman on a team that could not create offense at all. His defense is not as good as it used to be. When the Predators made the Stanley Cup final, I would have argued he was probably the best two-way defenseman in hockey. Now, a little bit more offense-centric because that's what the team needs from him. One of the best passers, one of the best breakout passers from the back end. Really good skater. Not as good as he used to be. Still a plus skater. Plays a very important role on his team. There's not really an argument. I mean, I feel like he's got to be in your discussion for top 4 or 5 defensemen in the league. We both have him. You have him ranked higher than I do, but Yossi's one of the best defensemen in the game. He used to be a lot better, and he's still this good. So I think that's a testament to just how good he is.
Yeah, and we might have to speed this a little bit because if we
No, I
do
know,
a
I know.
back and forth on this, we this might be the longest episode we've ever done. But yeah, for Roman Yossi, I mean, I have him higher. I think I value his defense more than you do. I think
Yeah,
even though his foot speed might not be at the elite super, like the absolute top of the top that he was during the cup final run, I still think he's more than quick enough. I think his foundation is so solid. He is so dependable. He is one of the best to do it right now in the sport of hockey. So I think 19 is low for me.
that's fair. So I think the efficient way we can do this is talking about the ones where there's a huge gap and then guys who aren't ranked on each other. So I
Sure.
think that's the efficient process for this. So next up, the best player of the modern era.
Yep.
I mean, Sid, year 17 last year, most important player on their team. If he's healthy, the Rangers are out in the first round in 5. He was absolutely filleting the Rangers alive. We both have him. There's nothing else to say. He best the evolution. I have it here on the little card. The evolution from just the best player in the sport to saying, okay, I'm just going to be the best grinder in the sport and win every single loose puck battle because I have a huge ass and I can box everybody out. It's an amazing thing to recognize that evolution. That's an important part of being a superstar player is to keep evolving.
And if he was younger, he'd be higher in our list. But
Yes,
he's just getting
100%.
up there in age, so it's tough to put him in the top 10, for example, when you've been through so many injuries and you're not 27 anymore, and
Yeah.
we still have him in our top 20, but he's just he's getting older, and we have to put younger people up top.
Yeah, for sure. We both got him. He's one of those guys. You can't ignore Sid. All right, so this is where we can have a junction point because you have
Yep,
Igor significantly higher than
I
I
do.
do. Um Igor, best goalie season in 7 years, best goalie season of the stat tracking era, in the discussion for best single season stretch ever in the modern NHL. I got to see it from him a little bit longer, like we just talked about with Jason Robertson. I got to see him do it for more than just one season. He could just be, the eighth or ninth best goalie in the league as opposed to the best goalie in the league. So for now, sample size docks him a little bit. And then again, like we just talked about before, it's really hard for a goalie to win a game by themselves. You can have a really good team in front of them, but they can't score too. And Igor's tried. Igor will try
He
to
has
score.
tried. That's right.
He will try to help his own cause, but eventually somebody else is going to have to score for him. And that's the reason I have the goalies as low as I do is eventually you're going to need someone else aside from them to help you out in these kinds of situations.
This is where we disagreed pretty
Yeah.
heavily on, because for me, again, like, we are looking at things from an overall overarching talent point of view. And if you're in a game 7 and you have Igor Shesterkin or Vasilevsky in net, you are way more comfortable taking chances, or or pinching in on the blue line, or doing things that generate more offense, because if the puck goes the other way, you know that you have one of, if not the best goalies on the planet there behind, in between the pipes, ready to stop whatever comes his way. And I think that's one of our biggest differences here for these lists is I have Vasilevsky and Shesterkin a lot higher than you do,
Yes.
because in terms of the like over in terms of just sheer talent, like, you don't want anybody other than Vasilevsky and Shesterkin in net for you in a game 7 third period tie game, or you're up by a goal or down a goal, whatever. You want those two in net, and that to me is very important, because as we've seen in Edmonton, where Connor McDavid can score 15 goals in a game and the Oilers still lose because Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith are really bad. So, like, to me, like, if they had Shesterkin or Vasilevsky in net, like, they'd be back to back Cup champions. Like, that's how big of a difference goaltending is. And yes, while goaltending in and of itself cannot win you hockey games, it sure as hell can lose you hockey games. And we saw that in Edmonton. We saw that in Calgary as well, strangely enough, against Edmonton, where Jacob Markstrom all of a sudden forgot how to play hockey and let up every shot that came his way. If they had Vasilevsky or Shesterkin in net, they would be in the cup final. Probably. Like, it was. I mean, Colorado was a different beast in and of itself, but like, Edmonton is a scary team with both of those, with either of those two in net. And to me, they're so much better than any of their competition. They're so much like they're I like to me like I have them much higher on my list because of just how good they are, and they're the two best in the sport. So I would have them higher than you do.
We'll circle back around to this, and we'll talk about goalies more when we get to your playlist, your slideshow too. 16 Pasternak, best right-handed shot in the game after Ovechkin. He is the evolutionary Ovechkin. He's the 100th percentile of one-timers, of power play. The I would say he's in that tier of pure sniper with Ovechkin now. The state Ovechkin's at 35, 36 years old. One of the best pure shots in the league. He's going to have a really hard time this year with no Marchand opposite him. The Bruins are going to be a very interesting team to watch, but he's one of the most dynamic shooters in the sport. He's a pretty good playmaker on top of that. Really good in transition. Not the best passer, not amazing defensively, but his offense is so good, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I had him pretty much in the same kind of range. Where
Yeah.
yeah, he's so good offensively. His defense is okay. It's fine, but he's we have him around the same range where Pasternak is like he's really good at what he does. I mean, he's one of the best forwards in the
Yeah.
game, and he's so dynamic offensively that it would be tough to not put him on your top 20.
Yeah, 100%. One of the most fun players to watch in the sport. Very entertaining player to watch. Next up, we both have Barkov relatively high. You have him a little bit higher than I do. Not much else to say. I mean, everybody had him at towards the top of that tier of underrated player, just because nobody ever really watched the Panthers until they got good in the last two seasons. Very good two-way player, 90th plus percentile of WAR in both offense and defense, 100-point player. Very interested to see if they're going to play him with Matthew Tkachuk or separate them both this upcoming season. But very entertaining player, and I'm glad he's starting to get his flowers because he's finally playing on a good team.
I have him higher than you do just because of how incredible he is on both ends of the
Yeah,
ice. My guy can have a great A opportunity on one end, and if he misses, he's the first one back to
yeah,
defend the opposing rush. I mean, he's just so good at what he does. He doesn't get his flowers because he's not in Toronto, New York, or
yeah.
where he's not in a quote unquote huge hockey market. He plays in Florida, so less people watch him, less people know how good he is. But if you get a chance to watch a Panthers game and you just keep one eye on Alex Barkov, you will see just how absolutely dominant this guy is every time he's on the ice.
One of the most entertaining players. And that was also something that came into my just guys who are just dynamic, who can make things happen without help from the guys around them. Because that's really something that takes over at certain points when you get into those difficult situations. And Barkov's the kind of guy you want with the puck on your stick if he's on your team.
Absolutely, we agree there. Barkov is a tremendous talent. He's incredible, and I wish more people knew how good he was.
Next up, we both have him in this same tier. Very good to see good Victor Hedman back. 2 years ago, when they went to the Cup final against Montreal, he was playing on a bad hip. Very much didn't have the same mobility. Didn't have the same what's the word I'm looking for? Spatial awareness. He wasn't as good at playing angles because he was limited in terms of what he was going to be able to do. But still, one of the best all-around defensemen in the game. Great. He's better offensively than defensively, which is something that's changed over the years. He used to be, I would argue, a little bit better defensively than he was offensively. Now, full-throated, probably the most well-rounded defenseman aside from the guy I have second amongst all of my defensemen, but there's nothing else really to say. This is what the modern NHL defenseman looks like. Size, speed, offense, can kill penalties. He's just older now. That's really it. I mean, a couple years ago, he's probably in the top five.
Yeah, I mean, he's Victor Hedman. What
Yeah.
can we say that hasn't already been said by every NHL analyst on the planet?
Yeah.
He's one of the best right now in the NHL. He's got rings. He's dominant on both ends of the ice, and there's a reason why he's always up for the Norris Trophy. I mean, he deserves it, and he's really good at what he does.
Yeah. Next up, we have got lucky number 13, Andrei Vasilevsky. the best goalie of his era. He became the full-time Lightning starter, I think in 2016 or 2017 when they traded Ben Bishop to LA. Meteoric rise. Wasn't amazing the first cup final run, and then the second cup final run he was just ridiculous. I think 30 goals saved above expected just in the postseason alone. Nothing insane. The man scares me every time they do that. Every time they do that close up of him where his eyes just aren't blinking for 45 seconds at a time, he scares the life out of me. He's like, what, 6'5", 6'6",
Yeah.
those crazy eyes, the long hair. He scares me. He legitimately scares me.
Kind of the same thing that I said about when we went to Shesterkin.
Yeah.
I have both of them just higher.
Yeah.
I have both goalies higher. They are one of the three positions that are on the ice at all times. The goalie never leaves the ice. I mean, unless there's a delayed penalty, but
Yeah.
let's not split hairs. He's on the ice all the time.
Yes.
And you want the best of the best to be on the ice at all times. And that is Vasi and Shesterkin to me. So that I have both of them a little bit higher.
Next up, we have got our first Ranger. You have him a little bit higher than I do. I just want to see a little more from him defensively. Other than that, he's probably the best. He's probably the smartest player in the NHL because he has no elite traits. Other than that, he's not the fastest skater. He doesn't have a ridiculously hard shot. He's just smarter than everybody else, and it shows in the way he plays the game. The game kind of slows down for him. Like, do you remember that movie? You're not a movie person.
Yeah, the answer is no. The answer,
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're going to say. The answer is no. I'm sorry.
No, there's a movie from like 15 years ago with Angelina Jolie where there's a bunch of assassins, and one of the like cool parts of the movie is whenever they're about to do an assassination, it goes into slow motion and it follows the bullet on the flight path in a super slow motion.
You could have just said the Matrix, man. You could have just said the Matrix. I know that scene.
Yes.
I don't know your Angela Jolie assassin movies, but I do know that scene from the Matrix. I'll say that.
Yes. That is how Adam Fox plays hockey. Everybody else is moving slower than him, even though he's not moving fast. He's just that damn smart.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I have him just a little bit higher than you do because first of all, he won the Norris. Not this past season, but the season before. Yeah, his defense wasn't as astronomically good as it was during his Norris season, but it was still good. It's still incredible. And the things that he does with the puck, without the puck, just the more you watch him play, the more you're just in awe of the things that he could do. Like just the passes off the boards to himself to evade somebody that's coming at him. Just like little things that I don't see other players do.
Yes.
He's so comfortable with the puck at all times. He makes the pass that otherwise would never have been made, would never have connected, would never have even been thought of. Adam Fox does it. And to me, that really sets him aside from pretty much anybody else on the planet. Yes, his defense, while not as superb as it was when he won the Norris, is still very good. But the other things about his game just stand out to me so well. When he's on the ice, I'm
good
chilling.
Things happen.
I'm chilling. Like I'm totally fine. Like whatever happens, I know that there's pretty much a 0% chance that the puck is going to be in the Rangers net because Adam Fox is doing Adam Fox things, and he's always doing something positive, and that's why I think I have him a little bit higher than you do. But he's, what else can we say? I mean, he's just a tremendous talent, and the Rangers are lucky to have him.
Next up, we both have him in the same ballpark. Mikko Rantanen, one of the best wings in the entire sport. Very good at both ends, better offensively than defensively. I went back and read something I wrote from a couple years ago where I was I was curious to see if he was going to be as good when he wasn't playing with either McKinnon or Landeskog, and very much he is this good. They're very good underlying numbers when you look at stuff like chance creation and setting up line mates. Very good straight line skater. Sure, he give you a little more defensively, but we're really splitting hairs here. This is one of the best wings in the entire sport. I mean, I think I have 3 guys ahead of him, and that's only because they're just more dynamic skaters in terms of wingers. There's not really much else to say. Finally got his ring. He is still the highest paid player on the Avalanche, which I find amusing until they figure out what they're going to do with Nathan McKinnon. But This is what you hope Alexi Lafreniere turns into 4 or 5 years from now. That's the arc you can kind of hope him on, because not the fastest straight line skater, better passer than shooter. That's your arc you're hoping Lafreniere ends up on, because that's the skill set. Elite playmaker, pretty good shooter, but better playmaker.
Agreed. He's not the most dynamic player on the Colorado Avalanche, but he's so good at other things. And when
Yes.
we get to Nathan MacKinnon, we could talk a little bit more about that. Mikko Rantanen, while not as offensively capable as Nathan MacKinnon, he does a lot of different things a lot better than Nathan
Yes.
MacKinnon. So to me, he's a more complete player. And when we get to my list, you'll see where I have MacKinnon ranked.
Yes.
You'll see where I have Rantanen ranked, and you might be throwing your pitchforks at me, and I will explain to you why I have the players where I have them. But Mikko Rantanen to me is a phenomenal talent. He's a very complete player.
Yeah.
He's never really out of position. He knows what he wants to do before he does it. He's just got a very high hockey IQ about him. He knows how the play is going to develop. He kind of just reads not only just where the puck is going to be, but where the other players are going to be. He's a
Yes.
very smart player, and I really like the way he plays.
Very fun player to watch. That Finland team, if we ever get a World Cup of hockey, is going to be very entertaining. Next up, McAvoy. Yes, I have the guy who hasn't won a Norris ahead of Adam Fox. I think McAvoy is the most complete defenseman in the sport. He's 99th percentile in defense, 99th percentile in offense. If the Bruins actually let him quarterback the power play, he would have the counting stats to be in the Norris consideration, but they usually have Pasternak in that spot running the point, so he doesn't get the gaudy counting stats. But this is the best defensive defenseman in hockey to me. Some people will say Jacob Slavin. Some people will say Victor Hedman. McAvoy's always in the right spot. He plays in every situation. He usually is second power play, first penalty kill, and he's been saddled with some pretty bad partners the last couple of seasons because the Bruins have been so injury depleted. But one of the most entertaining players to watch. Watching him work the blue line when they have the puck in the offensive zone is a treat. It sucks that we can't facilitate him and Adam Fox being on the same hockey team again like they were when they were little kids, but we will cope.
I love Charlie McAvoy. I have him very high on my list as well. I love the way he plays. I love everything about his game, his hockey IQ, his game sense. We pretty much. I think I have him maybe just a slightly higher.
Yes.
But like he's a phenomenal player, and yeah, I see where you're coming from in terms of putting him above Fox. I mean, like these numbers are so marginal, right? Like
Yes.
who's number 10, who's number 12, or like they're in the top 20, and really that's kind of what matters here. Like
Yes.
these are the top of the top of the top, the absolute best players in the league, and Charlie McAvoy is one of them 100%.
Beautiful. Number 9, you have this guy higher. I do not. I understand the Leafs fans and Toronto media need a whipping boy. I really do understand that somebody's got to wear it for the Leafs not winning a playoff series, and because he doesn't have as many points as Austin Matthews, it usually falls on Marner. Marner's one of the most complete players in the sport. He's 100th percentile of offense, 93rd, 94th percentile of defense. Amazing playmaker, very good passer, better passer than scorer. They're going to have him babysit John Tavares more than likely going forward because John Tavares can't really be as dynamic as he used to be. Marner's one of my favorite players in the entire sport. I would have put him higher, but because of the few guys I have ahead of him, I'll explain why I have them ahead of him. But one of my favorite players in the entire sport. I love Mitch Marner.
Maple Leafs fans and media that hate on Mitch Marner don't understand what they're watching.
Correct.
It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me that there's a good portion of Leafs media and Leafs fans that don't appreciate what Mitch Marner is. He is a phenomenal two-way talent. He's a sensational player on offense, on defense, in the neutral zone. I mean, my guy does everything for you and more, and everything that you could possibly want in one hockey player, he does it for you. And yet, because of the Leafs' total inability to win playoff games, it's Mitch Marner's fault. That doesn't make any sense to me. And yeah, I mean, the argument that like from Leafs fans and media is that like, oh well, Mitch Marner should have more points in the playoffs and he should be doing all these things and all that. Okay, but like I get that. At the same time, though, you're not. you're not seeing the full picture that is what Mitch Marner brings to the table. A lot of what he does isn't the counting stats. Yeah, you because he gets paid a lot of money, you expect him to put up 100,000 points a game. But
He
if
still
you
gets you 85, 90
right,
points. I
he
mean, I
gets
don't know what we're
yeah,
arguing about here.
he
He's
gets
one
you
of
so many points, and he's
yeah.
so good at so many other things, and yet because it's Serrano, they hate him. I don't get it.
It's frustrating to say the least. Next up, number 8. This is somebody you don't have on your list. This is a little bit of me succumbing to my this guy scares the hell out of me every time he has the puck on his stick fear, because Nikita Kucherov is one of the very few hockey people who has tormented me basically my entire Rangers fan existence. And he's one of the most just pain in the ass guys to play against. I mean, they won 2 cups in consecutive seasons because he had 68 points over 2 playoff runs. One of the best big game players in the entire sport, has that edge to his game that gets the hockey band all hot and bothered. I know he's not as great defensively because he's coasting on defense because he's so good offensively, and that's why you've dinged him out of your list. I would rather have the guy who scares the shit out of me than not have him. That's really what it comes down to. I went back and forth between the order of 6, 7, 8, 9 on my list because they're all pretty close to each other for me. But Kucherov's playoff performance especially lingers for me because they went back to back because him and Braden Point went Super Saiyan for 2 straight playoffs. And that really does matter at the end of the day. I mean, the Rangers lost in the playoffs because they didn't have Panarin playing at a Nikita Kucherov levels, Zibanejad playing at a Kucherov level.
Well, I don't have Panarin on my list, and I don't have Kucherov
Yes.
on my list. And the thing about it is this: when I made my list, like we said earlier, my focus was on complete levels, complete game. How
Yes.
good are you in all aspects of the ice? And while Nikita Kucherov is one of the most dynamic offensive players on the face of the planet, my guy cannot guard a lawn chair. My guy does not do anything if he's not in the offensive zone. He is awful. His micro stats, his underlying metrics. If he's not in the offensive zone, he does absolutely nothing. And we saw it during the Rangers playoff run when they played them in the conference finals. When Nikita Kucherov was pinned in his own zone, he did nothing to
Yeah.
stop the Rangers from continuing to cycle the puck and getting the passes through and doing all the things that the Rangers needed to do to win games. He did nothing to stop it. He did nothing. And that is really what took him out of my top 20 for me. And the argument could be, is he 21, 22? I mean, I guess, yeah, like he's somewhere in that range just because of how phenomenal he is offensively. And like you said, he's an offensive phenom and he could score at will and do all these things. But my criteria was how good are you at all aspects of the sport of hockey? And while Kucherov is this, otherworldly talent at offense, he can't defend a lawn chair, and that's a problem for me. So I don't have him on my list.
It's very fair. It's a very fair assessment. Next up, Johnny Gaudreau, same type of deal. Elite offensive player. I probably should have gotten a little bit of Hart Trophy buzz for how good he was last year. One of the best transition players in the entire sport. He is a one-man zone entry. You give him the puck, he will get it into the offensive zone, and something good will probably happen. I'm very curious to see if they're going to load him up on one line with Patrick Laine in Columbus. But based on he's had 2 Hart Trophy caliber seasons in the last 4 or 5 years. One of the best players in this, one of the most entertaining players to watch in the entire sport. His defense does leave you a little bit to be desired, but if Daryl Sutter doesn't complain about his defense, I think that's enough for me to say I can have this guy in my top 10 because Daryl Sutter likes him some defense.
I think I had him a little bit lower than you do, but
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, he's a great two-way player. Columbus is very lucky to have him. Calgary is very disappointed that they lost him, but Gaudreau wanted to go to Columbus, so there he is. He's a tremendous player, and Columbus will definitely be a better team as a result of having him on there.
Okay, next. This one might be a little surprising how high I have him. Kaprizov has single-handedly made the Wild a relevant playoff team because of how much he's elevated the games of mid-30s Matt Zuccarello and what he did with Kevin Fiala last year, and Kevin Fiala got massively paid based on how their first line played last year. This is the most dynamic skater in the league that isn't Connor McDavid or Nathan MacKinnon to me. The Wild will have zone entries where they will just have Kaprizov skate the perimeter of the offensive zone with the puck and go around everybody because he's that good of a skater until a play develops. This is one of the most dynamic players I've ever seen play hockey, and it's a good thing the Wild have him because they don't have cap space to get any other good players.
He's a phenomenal talent. I know I've thrown the word around phenomenal a lot, but this is the 20 best players in the
Yes,
NHL. So like all
yes.
of them are going to be phenomenal. But I think I have him a little bit lower only because I want to see him do it more. Just say kind of the
Yes.
same thing with Nick Robinson, but Kirill
Fair.
Kaprizov. I was also battling within, and if you were looking at my list as I was making it, I was kind of shuffling him around a few
Yeah.
different places as I was doing it because I didn't really know where to put him because he dominated in Russia, then came here and dominated here. So while he hasn't been in the NHL for 20 years, he has dominated at home and he's dominated it here. And last season he was one of the most dominant players in the sport. He did everything the Wild possibly needed. He I want to know how his back feels because he carried the whole team the entire season. I mean, my guy's got back problems after what he did. He was a sensational talent, and ultimately, like I was moving him around, and I don't think I have him quite as high as you do, but I have him pretty high as well. He's great. I love Kirill Kaprizov.
All right, we're getting into the rarefied air now. At number 5, I have Cale Makar. You have him higher because I succumb to the offense do good theory, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because that's really the biggest difference in our lists is how much I value offense versus you do. Makar's coming off of the best defenseman season of the modern NHL era. Won the Norris, just basically gives the Avalanche a fourth forward and a fourth forward who skates at a high enough level that you don't really have to worry about him defensively, even though he's freelancing on offense the entire time. His ability to get into the play no matter what with just pure foot speed, his vision, his point totals are off the charts. It's really hard. Like if you were making a creative player in NHL, in EA Sports' NHL franchise that played defense, you would make Kel McCarr.
Think about how good Erik Karlsson is on offense, and think
Yes.
about just if he was good at defense, this would be
Yes.
Cale Makar. Like he is he's a phenom. I mean, this guy I have him higher than number 5 just
Yeah.
because of he's literally one of a kind. You don't see this kind of player very often in the sport of hockey. He's so elite on in both ends of the ice, and as a defenseman to not only be good enough to shut down everybody in the defensive zone, but to then get the puck and deliver the crispiest outlet pass or the crispiest the play that really drives possession in the offensive zone to create an offensive opportunity. You will not find a defenseman that does it better in today's game than Cale Makar. I love the way he plays the game of hockey.
Okay, this is one of the ones you will probably want to argue about. Number 4, I have Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
The defense does leave you wanting more. This guy was a point per game player on one leg in the playoffs. That's basically all. One of the most. I think he's probably the best playmaker in the sport. McDavid is probably more dynamic of a player, but Draisaitl's ability to set up his teammates and to facilitate offense at that high level, where him and McDavid are doing that thing where like they go Super Saiyan on the power play. There aren't a lot of people on the planet Earth who can pass a puck better than Leon Draisaitl. He won a Hart Trophy 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the year McDavid missed a good chunk of time with an injury. This is one of the best players in the sport to me. His defense could be a little bit better, but because him and McDavid, you end up playing together the last 5 to 8 minutes of a game if they're chasing. They're not playing a lot of defense. I will concede the defense for the sake of offense because Draisaitl is one of the best offensive players we've ever had in the NHL.
Sure, but he also can't guard a lawn chair. He's another one of those players that he is so phenomenal offensively, but defensively just gives you absolutely nothing. I actually thought he was the worst defensive forward in the NHL, the worst like top six and forward to play defense in the NHL. And then I saw Nikita Kucherov stats and thought, oh well, that answer is wrong. It's actually Nikita Kucherov. But yeah, I mean Leon Draisaitl is a great talent offensively. No one's arguing that. I don't think I have him on my list just because
You don't.
again, like he's so brutal offensively, and he's I think Nikita Kucherov. While I have, Nikita Kucherov is worse at defense than Leon Draisaitl, but I think Nikita Kucherov is a better 5-on-5 talent than Leon Draisaitl, which is why I still have Kucherov on my list as opposed to Leon Draisaitl. Yeah, Leon Draisaitl can score literally at will in the power play. He's a machine when the other team is down a player. And yeah, he's still one of the best players when it comes to 5-on-5 offense. But to me, I cannot get past the defense. I cannot get past just how he doesn't do that part of the game at all. He's not a part of it. He wants no part of it. And if I'm looking at the top 20 complete players in the NHL, unfortunately, Leon, for all of his offensive skills and how dynamic he is and all these things, he doesn't do anything on one half of the ice, and that bothers me.
Okay, so we both have the same 1 and 2. So we'll talk about three, and then we will go to yours,
Sure.
and we will keep this. Uh, I have Nathan MacKinnon at 3. A lot of people would argue at 2. You have him significantly lower. MacKinnon, when he gets into that mode where like he gets one of the mushrooms from Mario Kart, there's not a thing on planet Earth that can stop him. Where he just puts his head down, he will skate through you, he will skate around you. One of the most dynamic players we have. His combination of size and speed. He could give you a little bit more defensively, but he has the puck so often, you're willing to tolerate his poor defense. You're dinging him for defense. I completely understand that. I just, as a Ranger fan who has longed for somebody who can just do exactly what MacKinnon does in these kinds of situations. That's why I got to have him this high. There are very few people on the planet Earth who can skate through a crowd the way MacKinnon does.
I have the same argument for McKinnon that I do with Kucherov. They're both
Yeah.
offensive phenoms that can turn the game on its side and can do all these things when they have the puck. But when they don't have the puck and the play isn't in the offensive zone, they are non-existent. They don't do anything. And that is really my biggest qualm with Nathan MacKinnon is once again, his underlying metrics defensively are really bad. He doesn't do enough when he doesn't have the puck on his stick, when the puck isn't in the offensive zone. He does a lot of things well when he has the puck and he has to do, an outlet pass or something with when he has the puck, he's terrific. He's phenomenal. But when he doesn't have the puck and is forced to defend, he is very below average. And again, when it comes to looking at overall, how good are you at everything kind of list, Nathan MacKinnon to me gets dinged and he gets put lower on my list than usual, than other people would, just because my man's cannot guard. He can't defend anybody. And I say guard because I've been working in
You're a
basketball for too
basketball
long.
guy.
I've been working in an NBA media for too long. But yeah, he can't defend anybody. And
Yeah.
when you're making a list of best overall players, regardless of what position they play, and my guy can't play in one half of the ice, that to me is a problem.
That's very fair. Okay. I have Austin Matthews 2, Connor McDavid 1. So does Andrew. We'll talk about them on Andrew's half of this. Now we ding that out. We ding that in. Okay. We talked about Sid before. What else is there to say? One of the best ever. He's going to have an argument for Hockey Mount Rushmore whenever he does retire.
Sure.
The Canadians are very going to argue that it should be him, Gretzky, Gordie Howe, Bobby Orr. I think that's reasonable. I really do. And he's still damn good. He is still a point per game player at 35 years old.
Yeah, he's still top 20 in my book. And Sidney Crosby, if he was younger, he'd be higher on my list. Just he's not 20, like we talked about. He's not 25, 26 years old anymore. He's been through so many injuries, and he's still as good as he is, which is incredible in its own right. So Sidney Crosby at 20 for me. If this was a few years ago, he'd be much higher, but right now he's at 20.
Okay, this is one of the interesting ones because this is somebody I didn't have, but this is somebody I was giving consideration to. I like Devon Taves' game a lot, a lot, a lot. It's just that there are forwards I would rather have because forwards are defensemen play more minutes, but a forward's ability to impact the game is just a little bit more prescient because usually they have the puck more because defensemen have to get rid of it because of the situations in which they play the puck. So if you want to make your case for Devontae's over, say, I don't know, somebody I have, like if you want make your argument, say him versus Kucherov, putting you on the spot.
Because when Devon Taves has let's say the puck is in the Avalanche zone, Devon Taves will break up the play and then create the pass to create, let's say, an odd man rush. He gets that seam pass. He not only takes the puck away from the other team, which Kucherov cannot do. Devon Taves is very good at taking the puck away and creating offense based off of what he does defensively. He takes the puck away, he turns the puck around, and now all of a sudden the Avalanche go the other way and they create offense. But not only does he do that, he will then join the rush
The
and
rush,
be
yeah.
part of the offense. That's what I love about Devon Taves. And the Islanders somehow traded him away for 2 second-round picks. I don't know. That still bothers me. But anyway, like Devon Taves is is such a smart hockey player. He will take the puck away. He will turn it over to the Avs forwards. They'll go in a rush, and then he joins in, and then he continues the offensive capabilities that the forwards have. He's like another forward out there.
Yeah.
When he's in the offensive zone, he plays like a forward. But when he's not in the offensive zone, he plays like a defenseman. And I love that versatility out of him. And that's why I have him on my list. He might not be the sexiest name on my list, but if you really watch him play and see his two-way ability, I would think you'd have to at least see where I'm coming from. He is
Yeah.
so good at everything that needs to be done in order to win hockey games. I couldn't not have him on my list.
I wonder if he'll ever get enough attention to get Norris votes. It's always going to be hard for somebody who plays with Cale Makar, but I hope he gets at least a top 5 at some point in
Sure,
his career.
that'd be great. At number 18, I had David Pastrnak. We kind of had him. We kind of have him in the same range. Pastrnak, like we talked about, he's a great player. I dinged him a little bit for his defense. If he just defended a little bit better than I have him, I'd have him higher. His offense is, as everybody, especially Bruins fans, know, he's such a dynamic player, and he does so many things well that makes the Bruins win hockey games. If he just defended a little bit better, he'd be higher on my list.
100%. If he was a little bit better defensively, I'd consider top 10, to be honest with
Sure.
you. If he was 60, 70th percentile of defense, I would probably have him in my top 10. Next up, you have him a little bit lower than I do. This guy's really fun to watch. That is one of the recurring themes of my point here. Hockey is one of the sports where typically the guys who make hockey look the easiest are the best players.
To me, all these players are fun to watch, right? Like
Yeah.
even Devon Taves, like you would
Yeah.
think he would think he's the most like boring name on my list, but even him, like just watch Devon Taves play. He is very fun and fascinating to watch. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm a psychopath when it comes to the sport, and watching these little things happen, like really just like I love that. I love when Devon Taves like makes this like little pass that like nobody else notices, but I do, and I love it. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but Johnny Gaudreau's another player where he's really like, Calgary is so disappointing that they couldn't sign him. Like, Calgary did everything they possibly could to try to bring him back, and unfortunately, Johnny Gaudreau said thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to Columbus for Columbus's game. They're having a great player, and he's a great two-way player. He's going to be so much fun to watch in Columbus, and yeah, I do have him a little bit lower than you do, but he's still in my top 20. He's still an incredible talent, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are an infinitely better team now that he's on their team.
cannot wait to see him in Line, even if it's just on the power play.
Sure.
All right, this is someone I don't have. This is someone you have, and you were kind of curious why I didn't have them. So, for me, Bergeron just not as gaudy of the point totals as some of the other guys on this list. He's the best two-way forward we've probably ever seen in the modern NHL. They should really hyphenate the Selke Award to the Selke Bergeron Award. I'm not kidding. He is that damn good at defense. I'm glad he's coming back for one more year. It sucks it's going to be on a mediocre Bruins team, but everybody should enjoy one last season of Patrice Bergeron.
And his season last year was incredible, despite the rumors
100th percentile of offense and defense.
Despite the rumors of him retiring, my guy turned around and absolutely dominated both ends of the ice. That's why I have him on my list. If he was younger and wasn't imminently about to retire, I'd have him higher on my list. But because he's a little bit older and the retirement rumors are swirling about, he's a little bit lower. But you literally could not find a better two-way player in the modern era than Patrice Bergeron. To not have him, I could not take it upon myself to not have Patrice Bergeron on my list. That's why I asked Nick why he didn't have him on his list, because like even despite everything, Patrice Bergeron isn't 26. He's not in the absolute prime of his career. He still had just an excellent season in Boston. And just because he's older doesn't mean that it doesn't matter how good he was, because he was still playing top 6 minutes against the best of the best against every team, and he still dominated in virtually every aspect. So to me, Patrice Bergeron is more than worthy of a top 20 spot.
Okay. Now, this is another guy. We're both in agreement. This guy is so fucking good. There's incredible. Just nothing else to say.
He is incredible.
Dynamic.
I just want to see him do it again. If he does it again, then he'll move up on my list. Like that just is how I saw it. Same thing when we talked about Jason Robertson. It's like, I love his game. No, can I see it again? As soon as it happens again, he moves up.
100%. Such a fun player to watch. Victor Hedman is the modern NHL defenseman. For a while, it was Duncan Keith, and then now it's Victor Hedman.
He's been a lot better this season than he was a year before, and when that's kind of been my back and forth with Victor Hedman is which kind of Victor Hedman are we going to see next season? That's kind of my question mark with him going into 2022, 2023 is, he's still, I have number 14. He's one of the best players in the NHL. But when the season before, he didn't have a great year. Let's be honest with ourselves here. He didn't have a great year. So, but then he followed it up with a really solid and just a really great bounce back season we saw this past year. So my only question that I have for Victor Hedman is, what version of him will we see in the next calendar year, I should say.
Word. Moving right along. You have him this low.
Yep.
The one thing I would add to this is he's not afraid. There are some of the guys who get dinged a lot for not looking for confrontation, not being physical. Nathan MacKinnon is just kind of a full-throated psycho. I mean, there are very few, just like yelling at people for not eating whole wheat pasta. Like this guy scares me. This guy scares me.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I have him at 3. I'll be afraid if I ranked him any lower.
He's gonna come find me here sooner rather than later, because I only have him at 13 again, like I said, because he can't defend, he can't play defense, and if my criteria for looking at who are the best overall players in the sport pertains to how good, if they're a skater, how good are they at offense and defense and transition things and everything that makes the sport of hockey. Nathan MacKinnon is good at most of these things, but defending is he can't do it. He literally can't do it. So I can't in good faith, in a list of overall ability, list him higher than where I have him, because he can't defend. Like we that like this is why we differed in our criteria and how we viewed this list.
Yeah.
We did it a little bit differently. So it's not that one of us is wrong, the other one is right. Like
Yeah.
this is all subjective and we're all splitting hairs anyway. It's also August. There's nothing to do, so this is what we're doing, right? Like there to me, Nathan McKinnon, if he just worked on his defense, he would be in my top 3. If my guy just worked a little bit, just a little bit on your defense, Nathan, a little bit. If you just a little bit, he'd be top 3. But he can't defend, so he's 13.
12, Mikko Rantanen, so fun. I wish the Rangers
Yeah.
had this type of forward on our team. Like, Chris Kreider could be this if he was a little bit better of a passer. We hope Alexi Lafreniere can be this because the Rangers need this type of two-way forward who can set up their line mates that isn't Panarin. They need a little more. They need another high-end guy with this toolbox.
The question that I might get from some people is, oh, how do you have Mikko Rantanen above Nathan McKinnon? That's because Rantanen knows how to defend. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. He's not as offensively dynamic as Nathan McKinnon. There's few people on the planet that are as good offensively as Nathan McKinnon. But Mikko Rantanen is just objectively a more well-rounded player. Mikko Rantanen does everything well that Nathan McKinnon cannot. Mikko Rantanen can defend, which, yay, because Nathan McKinnon, as we discussed, absolutely cannot. So to me, Mikko Rantanen, while not as good offensively, he's still incredible offensively, but there's Nathan McKinnon is on a different stratosphere when it comes to offensive talent. But Mikko Rantanen does defense and all like the other little things that make up that half of the ice that Nathan McKinnon just doesn't do well. And to me, that makes him just a more overall better player in terms of, like we're not just looking at offense. We're not just looking at defense. How is this player in a vacuum? If you showed me just him playing, take the jersey off, let's just watch the way he plays the game, Mikko Rantanen is a more complete player.
Completely agreed. Number 11. This is somebody I don't have who I was debating on having. I'm very excited to see if they play him with Barkov because I think him and Barkov could make a lot of fun things happen.
Think about how offensively dynamic Rick Nash was in Columbus, and this is who Matthew Tkachuk reminds me of. He is just he's a powerhouse. My guy will bulldoze anybody on the ice, get the puck and score. That's the kind of player that Matthew Tkachuk is, and for Florida to get him is such is. I mean, these players do not grow on trees. He's a massive individual. He does so many things right, whether it be in the defensive end, in the offensive end. He can score at will. He can also take the puck away from you at any time. He is so good at all ends of the ice. And for me, I have him at number 11. Maybe I should have even had him higher because his underlying metrics are sparkling. If you subscribe to Jay Fresh and all his analytics, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk is dark blue all the way around. I mean, he's so good at so many little things with the puck, without the puck, getting the puck, what he does with the puck in terms of generating offense and preventing the other team from scoring. He does it all. He's a phenomenal talent.
Moving right along. Roman Josi, you have him a lot higher than I do. I want to see what the Predators are next year. It's going to be very interesting if they're just going to be another fringe year, depending how far UC Saros can go. I don't know if we'll ever see a defenseman sniff 100 points again. Roman Josi came damn close, though.
He was very close, and I like Roman Josi a little bit more than you do. I think his defense is still one of the best in the league. And Nashville fans were very upset that he didn't win the Norris this year. But I mean, Cale Makar you saw what he did. I mean, come on, we don't have to. It's Cale Makar, but can we just leave that Seneca picture alone? Thank you very much. But yeah, like Roman Josi is such a phenomenal talent. Like I've said phenomenal talent, I think, for like every player so far. But like he's just a player that when he's on the ice, you just know that it's going to be okay. You know, like he does whenever he has the puck on his stick, you know that it's going to be okay. When he doesn't have the puck on his stick and the Preds are in the offensive zone, you know that he's going to get the puck at some point and that it's going to be okay. And then when he is defending in his own zone, you know that you can trust him more than you can trust literally anybody else on that roster tenfold. That's what Roman Yossi does, and that's why to me he's not number 10. Yeah, he's, you know, he doesn't have that superstar foot speed that he had. He might be a little bit worse for wear on defense because of that, but he's still, to me, in the upper echelon of players, and that's why I have Roman Yossi at number 10.
Moving along, number 9, Alexander Barkov. The Panthers are going to be interesting this year. They might not be as good or season long as they were last year or the year before. They might have a higher ceiling playoff wise with him and Kachuk on the same line, because that's the kind of stuff you dream about when you're putting your team together, is having 2 top 10 players, 2 top 15 players on the same line.
I love Barkov. Give me 18 Barkovs on my team any day of the week. He's such a great talent, a great skater as well. He can, he's, like I said, he's the first one to try to bury a chance at one end. He's the first one back to defend if it doesn't go in the net. He's such a dynamic player, and I just wish more people watched Panthers games so we could appreciate him more.
We're going to get him some flowers. They are going to play on national TV at some point.
One of these days. Hopefully.
We might have to become the Alexander Barkov podcast. That might be the one way we could get him some national attention, is we throw him in to the logo somehow, just his face in the bottom right corner. Adam Fox, this is our guy.
We talked about him. He's what else can we say that we haven't said already early in the episode? I mean, he's such a smart player. He knows what to do with the puck, without the puck, what's going to happen with the puck 10 minutes from now. He knows exactly what to do and when to do it. He's an offensive powerhouse. He's a defensive powerhouse. When he's on the ice, it's going to be okay. And I really like his creativity. I really like how he sees the game. His hockey IQ's off the charts. I have a number 8.
The way you know Adam Fox is that good is that the last 2 Ranger coaches, 2 completely different people, have said, I need to be careful not to play him too much because he is that good. That when you have defensemen where it's like, all right, I got to give him a break because he's playing too much because he's that good, that's a good sign. That is a very good sign.
Sure.
Number 7, Chuck McAvoy, Adam Fox's childhood friend. I really wish we could have got him and Adam Fox on the Rangers. I know I said that before. There was a really small part of me that was convinced we were going to get 2 Norris Trophy caliber defensemen who wanted to force their way here. I was really hoping.
We're splitting hairs with 7 and 8. Charlie McAvoy is everything that Adam Fox is as well. I really like how he plays the game. I like how smart he is. I really like his skating as well as an underrated part of his game. And Charlie, like, the only reason I have Adam Fox at 8 and McAvoy at 7 is that Fox's defense, like we talked about, just went down just a little bit last season, and McAvoy's defense stayed at that unreachable level throughout. So to
99th percentile of defense playing 28 minutes a game. Just otherworldly
so
good.
We're splitting hairs at this point, but I would only put McAvoy at like an Adam, you know, like if they're both like, you know, like just so close together, McAvoy only takes the cake because of how he's been just that more consistent on defense, but they're both just elite players.
Moving right along, number 6, Mitch Marner. I wish this is who I want. Every year, there's a part of me that's like, maybe the Leafs blow it up this year. Maybe the Leafs blow it up this year. And God, I hope the Rangers have $14 million in cap space when that happens, because I want this guy on my team.
Like we said, I don't understand why Leafs fans and Leafs media hate Mitch Marner. I will never understand it. He's a complete player, and appreciate him, because if you don't, he's going to leave. He's going to leave. And then when he leaves, you will begin to understand what he did that you did not appreciate. Appreciate that, man.
Special player. You have Igor 5. You have Vasilevsky 4.
Yep.
There isn't any other goalie close. I thought maybe I would have Saros close to 20. I thought maybe Markstrom. Then I thought about it, and I the playoffs are still fresh in my mind. Igor saved the Rangers' skin so many times. Vasilevsky saved Tampa's skin so many times. These guys are both great. It's a shame one of them's going to have to be the backup for the other one at the World Cup of Hockey, but that'll be an interesting
Yeah.
conversation.
I mean, I have both of these at I have Stricken at 5 and Vasi at 4, and I have Vasi higher because he's done it. Right? He's done it. He's done the I'll allow absolutely nothing during the cup finals en route to cup wins. I have him higher. But if you do a coin flip for me, then to me
I'd be good with either one.
I'm
You give
just
me
as
either one, I'm
confident.
fine.
I'm just as confident with either one because Shesterkin did his best Lundqvist impression during these playoffs, where the Rangers did absolutely nothing for a vast majority of these games. Shesterkin did everything in his power to not give up as many goals as he did. Sans those 2 games in Pittsburgh in the early stages of the playoffs. He was the reason the Rangers made it to the conference finals. So Vasi just did it in the cup final and now has rings. That's why Vasi is at 4 for me. But to me, if you gave me an option of which one I'd rather have in a game 7, and I can only pick one, just give me a coin flip because I have full confidence in both of them.
There are other things to worry about if those are my 2 choices.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why I have him so high on my list. Is because I know you have goalies low, but to me, if I have 100% confidence in my goaltenders, then I can be more aggressive on the offense. I can do things that I wouldn't be able to do if I had somebody that I didn't trust in net to make a save what I needed him to make a save. There's things that the players don't like to admit this, but it's true, right? Like if you have Vasilevsky in net, you're much more confident in your ability to pinch it if the puck goes the other way, that Vasilevsky is going to make a save. If you're playing on Edmonton and you're pinching as a defenseman and the puck goes the other way, your first thought is, "Oh boy, we just gave up a goal." So players don't want to admit it, but it's true. We don't want to say things out loud, but it's true. Like when you have the best goalie or the second best goalie, which it doesn't matter who you put where because they're both 1 and 2, however you want to put it, that's how you put it. But when you have those 2 in net, you can do things that otherwise you wouldn't do.
Okay. Instead of talking about Cale Makar, over under 3.5 Norris trophies, not including the one he already has.
Not including the
6. I think Lidstrom has the all-time record with 6. Do you think he gets within sniffing distance? I'm not saying more than 6. Do you think he gets to 4 or 5? Total?
Dude, it's such a. I think he deserves to have that number if he continues to play the way he does. Will he or won't he? It's always a difficult discussion when it comes to awards because, like, the word finalists are always so subjective, and then the kind of like how they give out the award sometimes is very subjective and not very transparent. So
Yes.
I don't know is the best way. I'll refrain from betting and I'll just keep my money. I think like that's the best way for me to go
There
about.
is nothing at stake here.
That.
This is just conversation.
I mean, just because Cale Makar, if he continues to play the way that he's been playing, he absolutely deserves all the Norrises in the world. But will he get those awards? Because a lot of times, especially in the NHL, a lot of the award givers are always just like, well, he won it last year. We'll give it to somebody else this season. And I don't like that mentality. If you're the best player at something, then you should get the award for being the best player at something. So will he get 3.5 after? If you don't count this one that he already won, if he continues to play the way that he has, I would hope so.
Okay, so we both have Austin Matthews 2, and we both have Connor McDavid 1. The question I have for you is, what would Austin Matthews have to do to pass Connor McDavid in your mind? Because I think that's really the only interesting discussion we could have at this point. Because Matthews had the elite defensive season last year and scored 60 goals. And everybody's still kind of in agreement, yeah, Connor McDavid's the best player in the world. Is there anything Austin Matthews could do to pass him? Or is just McDavid's specialness, his it factor, whatever word you want to use to describe it, just too much to overcome?
That's a really good question. Because the gap isn't as big as I think a lot of people either pretend that it is or like to think that it is. Yeah. Austin Matthews is a one of a kind player where Austin Matthews is a better goal scorer, where Connor McDavid is the do it all kind of player.
Yeah.
Where and Austin Matthews also had a million assists, so I'm not out here saying that he can't pass. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Connor McDavid can literally do everything by himself and then also score 7 goals in a game. Like that's what
Yeah.
Connor McDavid does. That Austin Matthews, like he has done that in the past. Like don't get me wrong, Austin Matthews he scored 4 goals in the very first game that he played in the NHL against the Ottawa Senators. And for some reason I remember that, but I can't remember other things because that's how my brain works. But like I remember that 4-goal game very clearly. Like Austin Matthews can do a lot of the same things that Connor McDavid does, but Connor McDavid just does it in a way that leaves everybody's jaw on the floor when he does it. Austin Matthews oohs and ahs fans every game as well. But the way Connor McDavid does it, I don't think I've ever seen in all of my time of watching the sport of hockey. He literally like he will just turn it when I think he did against the Rangers when it
Yes.
was like that shootout. I think it was with Georgiev in net, which again, why was Georgiev in net against the Edmonton Oilers? I don't know, but I'm not the head coach, so who am I to question the head coach of a National Hockey League team? But when he just turned it on and totally pantsed 4 players to score on Alex Georgiev, that he does that seemingly every night. And Austin Matthews can score goals and he gets the assist and he does so many things well, but he doesn't do it the way Connor does it. And maybe that's just being more flashy. Maybe literally the answer is because Connor McDavid is a flashier player. I don't know if that's the answer, but maybe to some people that it is. We don't, it's subjective at this point. But Connor McDavid just plays the game in a certain way that is unseen for generations. He's that kind of player that just can transcend the game. And if you ask an American hockey fan, not even a hockey fan, if you just ask an American on the street to name a couple of hockey players, I will bet you that more just people on the street know Connor McDavid more than they do Austin Matthews.
I think that's a relatively safe bet. Okay, so transitioning. Okay, this episode we have recorded will be up on Monday. It will be up on all your favorite podcasting platforms. It will be up on YouTube. Be sure to be following the show on socials, Liberty Blue Pod on Twitter and Instagram, Liberty Blue Podcast on YouTube. The show usually is live on Twitch Monday, 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere in that window. Usually about an hour, a little bit long today. We had to throw you guys a bone because we missed an episode because life happens. That's Andrew Chelney. His Twitter is Chelney Andrew, CHELNEY. I am Nick Zararis, Nick ZARARIS on Twitter. Those are our personals. We will see you guys next week. Everyone be safe out there. Hockey soon, please.
Soon, please.
A crumb? Okay. We'll see you guys.
Later.